Hey, welcome to another fun episode of the It's Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur podcast. And I'm here with my favorite gal, besides my wife in the whole world, Leslie Spoor. Leslie, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks, Jeff.
You know, this is, and I'm Jeff Harrison, and I own a company called Swing Point Media. And we said, hey, let's get together. Actually, Leslie did. That's why you can't see my right arm because it's twisted behind my back. Said, hey, let's do this podcast.
That's right.
And because she's got a new camera, she's got a new microphone. She says, I got to use these things. So I said, okay, let's do it.
Except
Seriously.
I'm not using them yet. But okay.
Oh, you're not? Okay. All right.
No.
Well, you look good anyway. So.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, so the purpose of this, if you're just joining us, this is episode 1. We've done episode 0, kind of laid that out. If you've missed that, please go back and check it out. It kind of gives you an idea of who we are and what we do. We're not going to spend a lot of time each time, saying, hey, who we are and that type of thing. Go back to 0. So this is technically episode 1. And Leslie, I want to pick your brain because I think you're a genius when it comes to this. In that first year of business, I mean, let's face it, there's some struggles that go on, and so when we think about if we had to put them top, the first one comes down to cash management. Let me just set this up, and I'm going to turn it over to you because, again, I know you're a wealth of knowledge with this. Is this the startup costs for a business are usually pretty high, especially if you're a brick and mortar business. You've got,
right.
Leases, and you've got equipment, and on and on and on, and inventory. And so there's this tremendous pressure as soon as the door opens. Is you're looking at the bank balance and you're going, it's kind of tight. I got to go sell something, but
right.
It goes. So I really want to have your thoughts on what can we provide, what can we do as a business who's just started out in that first 12 months to say, hey, I need to have good cash flow management.
Well, it's going to be, a lot depends on what kind of business you are. First of all, if you're a service-based business or a product-based business, an inventory-based business, is 2 different approaches, right? So if you're a product-based business, you're going to need some capital to back you up to invest in that inventory, to invest in marketing and sales, to if you have employees, to cover payroll, right? So in that case, you're going to most likely, unless you have infinite discretionary funds, you're going to have to get a loan from a bank, right? And the SBA is one really good source of funding for small business owners. But you have to make sure that all of your information is accurate for what they want to see. And quite often they want to see a business plan, how you plan to use this money that they are going to give you, and how you're going to allocate it. So you want to take several things into consideration, including things like, how much inventory do I need to invest in? Can I work out of my garage, or do I need to work out of an actual brick and mortar building? Do I need people to help me? And am I going to pay them as 1099s or employees? Because all of that is different. So there's quite a few decisions to make. If you're going to be a service-based business, you can start out with far less money. However, these claims that you hear people say they started with nothing or they started on a shoestring, most of those are greatly exaggerated, right? You have to have some investment in order to get a business going, including marketing collateral, including memberships for professional organizations, including, you have to have a place where you can go meet and develop your brand and introduce yourself to people and network. And so there are some costs, even if you only buy business cards. And I know in this day and age, we don't always use an actual physical business card, but most people still like to get one, even if it's an electronic transfer of information to begin with. So those are 2 of the things. The other thing is, what revenue streams are you going to have for this business, right? Because I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. It's possible to create multiple revenue streams for either business, either type of business, service or parts-based business. So you want to look at how can you create revenue streams. And for example, in one of my companies, we've monetized the we sell our booklets and hints and tips and how to help people so that they can get all the information in one concise location. We sell documents and forms. That's another form of revenue. We have webinars, right? We have a client that the clients pay us, and you have also in your business quite a few sources of revenue, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have multiple forms of revenue, but the thing about it is, Leslie, is, and I want to pull the reins back a little bit because, hey, when we're just first starting out, we typically don't have, well, first of all, we don't have the idea to create those extra streams of revenue because we only have one service and one product, right? Because I don't know about you, but it took me probably years to evolve to the point like now, okay, I have several streams of income and I don't depend on any one of them for my business to be successful. When they all come together, it works out fine. It works out nicely. And I'm suspecting you're the same way, right?
Yeah, that's true. And the other one of the things I should have mentioned is that you need to learn how to prioritize where you're going to spend your money, right? You can't just throw it all out there willy-nilly. There's certain things that you definitely need, like I said, marketing collateral, and that you should invest in something that's high end. If you want to present yourself as a high-end business, or a professional business, you need to invest in more than one of those places where they have online forms that you fill out and it spits out a brochure or something. You actually should go to a graphics person and build a relationship with them so they understand your business and get something that looks pretty professional. I think that's important because that's your first impression on anybody, is the card or the brochure or the product or whatever the packaging. Packaging is really important too. I've seen people rave about how something comes packaged and then they don't, and then they're willing to pay more for it if they see the value, right? That's true for everything.
It's kind of like it's kind of like that first impression. Is that what you're saying? Is like, hey, your business card, your brochure, your website, those are things those are first impression items, and you need to make them look as professional and as good as they possibly can based on your budget.
Right, that's true, because that is the thing that people see and base their judgment of you on. And I hate to use the word judgment, but everybody judges, and they're going to say, I've had people come up and hand me a flimsy flyer, and I'm like, they don't know what they're doing. Or I'll have somebody send me an aqueous coated, which is a slick UV protective coating on a brochure, and go, wow, I know that this costs extra. So they are really serious about their business. I mean, something as small as that can give you a good first impression, right? And then you also need to think about what vendors are you going to need to work with you for your business, and how are you going to pay them? For me, I have always paid my vendors net 14, which means 14 days after they send me an invoice, I pay them. Whether I've been paid or not, they get paid, right? Because most people try to drag out payments for 30, 60, 90 days. And the longer you drag it out, the harder it is for that vendor to continue to provide services, right? And the faster you pay them, the better service they're going to give you and the more available they'll be in case of an emergency. So it's always been my practice to pay net 14. And I think that sets me apart as a business owner from other companies, these people that pay so far out. Now, if you're a vendor or you start a business and say you're a pool cleaner or a window washer or something in a service-based business, I always recommend billing in advance, trying to set up agreements with clients that says, I'm going to do your pool maintenance for the next 30 days. So I'm going to, or 3 months is what I'm trying to say, 90 days. And then I'm going to bill you for 90 days. And then when I get to 90, or to the, say 60, I'll bill you again for the next 90. So I'm always being paid in advance. So even if they withhold funds for 30, 60, 90, eventually you're getting money every month, and you've improved your cash flow, because cash flow is key, right? In my other business, we bill in advance some amount of hours to work with clients. And so that means I already have been paid for that time. So I have no exposure about getting paid. I don't have to chase the money. I don't have to worry about my cash flow. It's constantly coming in. And building a solid cash flow is one of the keys to keeping your business afloat.
So let me just recap here a little bit. First of all, make sure if you are just starting or you're thinking about starting, getting good funding and going to the SBA may be a good direction for you, but you need to make sure you get all your documents and your ducks in order, if you will, before you go there. But that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to help promote local businesses get off the ground, because let's face it, small businesses are the backbone of the United States, of our country. So it's, it's kind of one of those things. It's like they help you be successful. Provides more jobs, tax bases, that type of thing. So it's a return on their investment. The other is to make sure that, hey, your presentation is as high quality as it possibly can be based on your budget. But then speaking of budget, keep in mind, it might be a pretty lean budget going forward. As an example, your salary, you may not pay yourself a very big salary because you're putting all the money you're making back into the business. And it may be in the form of you're paying your employees, you're paying your vendors, you're paying for your marketing. And you're kind of like, we tend to pay ourselves last, it seems like. Isn't that true, Leslie?
It is true. And I really counsel the people that we consult for to pay themselves first. I believe if you do not have some exchange of energy, in other words, you don't pay yourself for some of your work, even if it's $5, I don't care how much it is, you need to pay yourself something so that you feel valued in the business, because your self-worth is important in being successful. And I know, and I also teach that you need to separate who you are as a person from who you are as a business owner, right? That's two different entities. So you, the person needs to pay you, the business owner, so that you feel like you're getting something out of this business. If you go years and years and never pay yourself, all of a sudden you start to think, why am I doing this in the first place? Right? So I really believe, and most people don't do it. Most people just keep dumping the money back in the business and trying to get it off the ground and build it. And that's a noble endeavor. But I think psychologically, there's value in paying yourself something, anything, and consistently.
I totally agree. We just know that, like, hey, when I first started my business, we paid ourselves like $500 a month. Yeah. And that was something, but it wasn't much. And so it was like I knew I had to live on my credit for a while as I built it up. And then what would happen is back in the day when my business partner Amy and I were together, it would be like, okay, let's pay our bills. Let's see what kind of profit we have after we pay ourselves, and then we would take a little bit more. And it kept building up, and over time, then it became a salary. And now it's, 14 years later, it's a different story. But early on, it was like, hey, that first year we had to watch, our pennies, and, well, if you have pennies anymore, we had to watch our nickels and dollars and make sure we didn't lose those. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is also, you mentioned about invoicing and paying in advance. One of the things that I noticed that I have evolved with, and if you're a business just starting here in 2025, it's pretty common to get digital payments. You got Venmo, you got this, that, and the other. And so what we've done at Swing Point Media, I'm sure you've probably done the same way, is like, hey, I don't chase anybody anymore for payments. I used to do that. It was like, geez, because now I've paid out for all their services, and it takes me 60 days to get their money, for them to send me a check. Oh yeah, it's in the mail. No. When we do business, I get your credit card, I put it on file. I use Stripe. You can use any kind of things, and I'm not promoting Stripe. I'm just saying I use Stripe, and then I put it on automatic reoccurring. So now every month I know it's just automatically reoccurring. It charges them. I'm not chasing anybody down. I do like what Leslie said. Hey, if I could go out and say, I'm going to charge you 3 months in advance, and then on that 60th day, I charge you another 3 months, I think that's even better. For me, I typically do charge in advance. And but I do require, it's not an option, I do require that we put a credit card on there, because I don't take checks. And I
don't either.
stopped taking stopped taking green stamps after my grandma passed away, because I just couldn't redeem them.
You're showing your age. Nobody knows what green stamps are.
That's why I stopped taking them. That's why I stopped taking them. So, okay. So we talked about creating a lean budget. We talked about getting some financing. We talked about properly invoicing, and then also your vendors, having a relationship with your vendors. Anything else in that when it comes to as far as cash flow management you can think of that we need to be aware of?
Well, I want to, the conversation comes up quite often about billing in arrears versus billing in advance, and we've kind of covered billing in advance. But before our listeners, I want to explain why you shouldn't chase money, right? In this day and age, you don't have to because of all the digital opportunity, but you shouldn't chase money, because if you do the math and you figure out, let's just do simple math, right? If you charge $50 for something and you have to chase it, then you make a phone call and you got to figure you're going to spend at least 6 minutes, say, on that phone call by the time you dial it and talk and hang up. And so that's a tenth of the hour, right? So that's $5, right? So every time you make a phone call, it costs you $5, which it dilutes the $50 that you started with. So, but if you have a credit card and you can process it automatically, then you have the ability to get paid immediately. Now, some people will argue, well, there's credit card fees, right? And credit card fees are part of the cost of doing business. And I would much rather pay 3% than 10%. And I think that's what people need to look at, is how much am I actually paying? And by the way, those fees are negotiable. So if you're working with a merchant services account to process your payments, because we use authorize.net, and then it goes through a merchant services account to our bank. Those people, the people that charge us the fees, which is the merchant services account, are negotiable. Every year I go back to them and say, where can we cut? Because they creep up on you. So I say, where do we cut? How do we, make this work? Let's do better. And they always do. In fact, everything is pretty much negotiable when you're a business owner. So the cost of insurance and the cost of all kinds of things for, the cost of your telephones and the cost of your rent, and all that stuff is negotiable. So you need to look at how do you get the best possible deal, right? And don't just accept the first thing they tell you, because your money is limited when you first get started, especially. You should always be conscious of this, even when you're been in business as long as we have, right? I'm going on 20 years in one of my businesses, and 10 years in another one. And so, when you're this far down, you don't have to worry about those little nickels too much. I could say nickels and dimes because pennies are going away. But, you still need to be conscious of what your costs are, because you don't want to spend willy-nilly, and you want to keep your cash flow up. Now, when I first started my original company, I took out a $50,000 bank loan for capital. I was very fortunate. As it turned out, I did not need to use any of it, and I was able to return the entire amount to the bank without touching it. I was lucky that way. However, some people are going to have to use it and have to make payments on that loan. That's perfectly fine as long as you calculate that into your budget for what it costs to run your business. And remember that a loan is a tax deduction, just like paying a vendor, just like paying for the phone. So you want to keep really good track of your expenses, because too many people think they can treat it like they're personal and throw it in a shoebox. And you should not do that when you have a business. You really need some kind of accounting software, QuickBooks, Peachtree. I can't even think of all the different ones. There's tons of them, right? But you need something that you automatically track your expenses and your income in, so that you get the most benefit and reduce your tax liability as far as possible. And I think taxes is one thing people don't talk enough about, right? I am not an accountant. If you have questions, you should definitely seek, formal financial advice. Don't go by just what I say, or Jeff for that matter. But you want to make sure that you position yourself well to limit your tax liability. And having a business is one of the best ways to do that.
Well, if I hit you right on that, for, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, my accountant said, listen, I want you to get another business credit card and another debit card, and everything you do, you put on this card. Do not
Right.
pay cash for anything.
Right.
And he said the reason for that is because now we can track everything, and if we determine when we're doing, the monthly P&Ls or the quarterly P&Ls, we determine that, hey, that particular expense is not part of the business, and we can deal with it. But if you pay cash and then we have to come back and figure it out, that's a whole lot more of a challenge. So since then, everything I do, it doesn't matter if I'm grabbing myself lunch while I'm out, or I was going to say putting gas in car, but I don't put gas in cars anymore. I own a Tesla. And it's one of those things, like, now it makes it so easy because now I just have to give them my credit card statements. They reconcile it. They ask questions, like I'm about ready to go through a list of things where they're saying, okay, please take a look at these charges and let me know how they're categorized. But it makes life so much easier. What are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. In fact, I have a card that has mileage or air miles on it. So we pay literally everything with our company credit card. So much so, and I would caution our listeners to make sure that you have a personal card as well. And if you end up buying some what could be expensed items on a personal card, then you need an expense report so that you can submit an expense report to the business, even if it's just you running it. Submit an expense report so that you can justify being reimbursed for things that you paid for out of pocket, but on a credit card, right? And the other thing I will tell you is one of the fastest ways to build up your credit as a business owner is to make multiple payments on your credit card. You should never carry a balance. I'm going to say that again for emphasis. Never carry a balance from one month to the next. If you pay for things on your company card, you need to pay it off several times a month. I never let mine get over a couple $1,000s before I pay it off. The multiple payments builds up your tax credit, or excuse me, your what's the score? It's a noun. FICO score builds up your FICO score quickly, and it keeps you debt free, and that increases people's willingness to do business with you, willingness to lend you money should you want to do a special project or add a new product line or expand your business. You'll be able to get the money easier because you'll have a better credit score.
Yeah, all you have to do, I love that, paying it off every month. You go ahead and use it because you've got, let's call it a 30-day float there before you get a bill. You're saying pay it off several times during the month. But the cool thing about that is it's like getting free money, right? But you still get the write-off. But if you let that balance move over, do me a favor, go to the last page of your credit card statement, flip it over and read how much you're being charged.
Yeah,
That sucks the profit right out of everything you have done. So don't, if there's any way possible, do not let any balances move from one month to the next. Before we go, Leslie, I want to talk about one thing that I've noticed, especially since I'm on the marketing side of what I do in my business. And I talk to a lot of business owners who sometimes are just starting out. I don't do a lot of startups anymore for this very reason. I'll talk to them. They've spent every dime they've had on equipment and cars and uniforms and everything else. And now they come to marketing. And now what happens is I give them, an idea of what they want to do with marketing. And it is rarely do they have a budget for it. They have no money for it. Like, it just blows them away. I could charge them $2 and it's twice as much as they can afford because they don't budget for it. They budget for everything else, but they don't budget for marketing. But here's the thing. Marketing, or sales, if you will, that's the oxygen for your business. If you can look at things and say, I don't need that piece of equipment. I don't need those embroidered caps at $32 a pop. I don't need a dozen of those or 2 dozen of those. And I can put that away, but then I can put it into something that says, hey, for every dollar I invest, I get $1 plus back. To me, that's a smart thing to do. And that's usually what marketing is. Like, hey, and I could go off on a tangent and I'm not going to, but it's take a look at this and say, how much, it's almost like you said, pay yourself first, budget before you start buying anything. How much can I afford to put into marketing? Now, a good rule of thumb is anywhere from 1 to 5% of your overall gross sales should be on marketing.
Right.
And most companies don't spend anywhere near that.
Well, the issue is that today, in today's environment, um, it's less organic than it used to be. I mean, people don't go to events like they used to. They don't, everything's virtual. It's by Zoom, or it's by FaceTime, or it's all social media, right? And so you absolutely have to find some way to market your business that will garner yourself a bigger reach,
Mhm.
whether that's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, something that will get you the reach that you need. And you can't just make a post and hope it'll happen.
Mm-mm.
With the algorithms these days and all of these social media platforms, you need somebody who's an expert in how to leverage and adjust to those social media algorithms so that you can get the most bang for your buck. And that's where you, Jeff, come in, right? Because you know how to leverage a post or a newsletter or written content, whatever it is. Not only can you create it for people, but you can also leverage it for them so they get the most bang for their buck. And I think that people forget, they think that it's the old days, and it's not. Or they haven't kept up with technology enough to understand what's available to them even. Sometimes I'm guilty of that, where I think I know what I'm doing, and then you tell me about something, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't know anything about that anymore. So I think that that's where you really shine, and how best you can help people is by um, maximizing, I couldn't think of the word, maximizing their exposure so that they can get more clients, customers, sell more products, sell more services, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's always a fun conversation. I just had a conversation with somebody out of Arizona yesterday, and we were talking about helping her grow her business. She has a salon, and it's a small day spa, and she just opened it up. And we talked about all the things she could do. But before we did that, I said, what do you really want the outcome to be? And let's structure the conversation around that. Because as you know, I can always have these great ideas or a lot of ideas, but sometimes that's overwhelming. Instead of saying, oh, you just needed to get to first base. I've already figured out how to win the game. Let's get you to first base.
Right.
And that takes the pressure off. And sometimes it is as simple as, hey, let's do these 3 steps because they all tie together, and let's put a few dollars behind it before we say, oh, I've got to be on 14 different platforms and I've got to make videos every day. Wait a minute. You got a business to run. You're dealing with this. How about we start this, because this is going to be your highest return on your investment. So let's work on that first. And sometimes what happens, Leslie, is the business will start with that, and 3 years later they're still doing that simple thing because it keeps making the cash register ring. It keeps ticking over, bringing in new clients. And that's the fun part about it, is
Right.
sometimes simple works really, really well.
It does. And when we're talking about cash flow and making sure that businesses stay solvent, because it's hard the first year, a lot of it comes down to, where do I put my money?
Mm-hmm.
And where you put your money should always be prioritized for what's going to bring you in more business, right? Marketing brings in business. Marketing collateral brings in business. We just put wraps on 3 cars that are absolutely beautiful.
Can't
And
wait to see them.
I know, oh, you haven't seen them yet? Oh, I'll have to
No.
show. But I can't, we've had so many inquiries already just based on the cars running around in different neighborhoods. People saying, oh, I didn't, I want to know about that. I want that service. So, the priority needs to be on what's going to bring you in business. The cap is not necessarily, it might bring you in some business, but everybody's wearing ball caps. So it's not really that big of a deal. I would much rather see somebody have solid social media content, repetitive, consistent social media content that costs a little more sometimes, not always, than wearing a uniform.
Mm.
Because if you don't get somebody coming in the door, they're never going to see those uniforms to begin with.
So
right?
true.
So you really got to put your dollars in those places that will bring you money. It's just like setting goals, right? Anything you do during the day, the goals you set should be with the eye towards furthering your business and growing your business. And it's the same for this. You know, the money has to be allocated so that you can pay yourself and pay your vendors, but also bring in more clients and customers. It's critical.
I think that's brilliant. Hey, I want to wrap up with this. I think we've given them some great pieces of information. Again, you're a wealth of knowledge. I'm just going to kind of recap. We're talking about cash flow management in that first year of being a business owner, realizing it can be kind of lean because you've invested a lot of money and now you're investing a lot of time. And don't forget to pay yourself. But we're talking about, hey, you might need to get a loan right away. SBA might be a good idea. Some people, I know, when I started a business a long time ago, I used the credit cards. That was my lender, if you will.
Right.
It was expensive, but it did the trick. Also, create a lean budget. Hey, it's so often it's like, stay in budget. Can you afford to go out to lunch 4 days a week? Probably not.
No.
Maybe not the best use of your time unless every one of those lunches are meeting with prospective clients, right? Never go to lunch by yourself. Take a client with you or a potential client with you. And then also, and I think this is something we often overlook. Don't be afraid to negotiate with your vendors. Find out what you can do. Will they give you 60 days? Will you give you 30 days? Whatever it is. And I know you pay 14 net. I think that's brilliant. But some of your vendors are more, they're bigger companies than that. So they are used to a little bit different term, but you can talk about that. Invoicing promptly. Boy, this is something I have been guilty of. Somebody will call me and said, "Hey, Jeffrey, you send me an invoice." I'm like, crap. I have it all electronically set up and I forgot to say start. Yeah, I'll send it to you. So, and then the other one is, you talked about is, set aside some money that you pay yourself, because it doesn't matter. We'll only do so much for so long for nothing.
Right.
And eventually we need to have something, like you said, even if it's $1, it's something, right? Anything else on that list that I haven't said as we kind of wrap up here, Leslie?
No, I think that's pretty much it. We talked about revenue streams, which probably was a little bit premature to talk about, but it's never too early to be thinking about where your business is going to go, right? So, and I do advocate for right from the beginning, how are you going to get out of your business? I mean, that's another topic for another day, but when you have an idea of what you want to create, where you want to go with it, and how you want to get out of it eventually, then you can make better decisions, right? And so when you're looking at your money and you think, okay, eventually I want to have an office and I want to have employees, you need to be planning for that. Your price structure needs to be set for that. That's the other thing we didn't talk about, but don't undervalue your products or services. A lot of people will, especially if they're taking a hobby and turning it into a business. They have a tendency to undervalue what they're selling. So there's a ton of stuff we can talk about on this. I'm sure we'll talk about it again another time. But I think you pretty much covered it when you summarized. It was good.
Yeah, this is why I'm on the show. I'm like the gutters on a bowling alley. I can pull her back and say, "Let's stay in the lane." She's told me for years, "Stay in your own lane," because there is so much information in that gal's head. We could talk nonstop for days and probably not repeat what you need to know. So today we're just talking about, hey, that first challenge, that first year, is cash management. And, again, you can always get a hold of Leslie. Leslie, give us your contact information.
You can find me through conciergebusinesssolutions.com, and there's 3 S's in a row, so make sure you get them all. Business Solutions. There's a website, there's a page there for Contact Us. You can reach me through that, and it has my phone number and all that stuff on it. And then Jeff, likewise, are you swingpointmedia.com?
swingpointmedia.com. And actually we're moving over to swingpointmedia.ai.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That makes sense. He's an AI wizard, I swear.
And of course you can leave comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave comments there. If you're listening to it as an audio podcast, you can obviously put comments in that. But before we leave, I do need to ask a big favor. If you would do us a favor, if you're listening or watching this and you found some value of it, do us a favor. Just show your appreciation by saying, "Hey, I like this," and tell us in the comments what's one thing that you took away from today. You said, "Oh, I didn't think of that." Now, here's the news. Now, lean in here for a second because this is important. You don't have to be in your first year to use a lot of the things that Leslie spoke about today to make your next year or even this year better. Leslie, thank you so much for joining us. As always, you are a wealth of knowledge. My name is Jeff Harrison, and you are on. I'll let you talk. I'll let you sign us out.
I was going to say, I'm Leslie Spoor, and this is Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted. I like to say it's the entrepreneur's guide to survival, and we will help you all along the way.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.